me another countdown. Oh, I think we're live. Oh my goodness, this is really interesting because I've never used StreamYard before and I've never gone live on YouTube before. So this is a first for the both of us.
Yeah.
And we've got some humans in, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So, hello everybody. Welcome. My name is Rosie. I'm the calligrapher behind Wondercrafter. I'm also the creator and the coach of the Craft Academy, which is a coaching program that is designed to give you a step-by-step process on how to go from 0 clients to actually booking your dream clients. It's complete with the templates for everything that you need for pitching, on the emails, brand decks, and contracts, so you can actually book with confidence and get that consistent cash flow. So if you would like to scale or build your calligraphy business, all you have to do is book a call with either me or my team member, and we can chat about some of your business goals. So I wanted to introduce KRISTIN. She is actually another amazing artist in the Craft Academy. She is based in Columbus, Ohio, which is a smaller town compared to New York or California. And I'm so excited because she is also a lawyer. So not only is she the talented calligrapher behind Lettered by KRISTIN, but she's also the lawyer extraordinaire who actually specializes in contracts, general intellectual property, and trademarks. So she actually has been a very pivotal member for our community from the very beginning. She's even coming out with a contract resource in 2023. So definitely give her a follow so that you can stay in contact with her and be ready when it comes out. So I wanted to give a little bit of a background behind KRISTIN. So she actually joined the Craft Academy in September of 2021. So it's been about a year now. She was actually struggling to market herself as a calligrapher and be the, renowned calligrapher in that area. She was really only charging like $150 to $300 for one seating chart, which is a ton of work for everyone who has done it before. And she really wanted to get her name out there as a reputable calligrapher, but she was having trouble doing that. But fast forward to today, she's actually very well known and has actually worked with awesome brands like Gucci, Bloomingdale's, and even the Cleveland Orchestra and Johnny Walker as well. And she's even traveled to California, Cleveland, and Philadelphia, and has, in order to complete some of these events, which is super amazing. So, KRISTIN, I'm going to have you go ahead and come on and introduce yourself. Can you tell us how you started and what your journey to calligraphy was like?
Yeah. So thanks so much, Rosie, for having me on. I'm really excited. So I started calligraphy in 2018, I would say, for my own wedding, and really just fell in love with it. Like, it was the one part of, I think, wedding planning that I really truly enjoyed. So I wanted to kind of continue that and do it for other people. And so the very beginning of my business was heavily focused on weddings because that's what I knew and that's what I knew how to do. And then, kind of worked to pivot. And that is where the Craft Academy came in. So, yeah.
Cool. So, when did you decide to make your calligraphy hobby into like a business?
As soon as I had, I would say, a couple of wedding events under my belt for other people, and I kind of started noticing, like, oh, hey, like, people are paying me for this. They're interested in this. This is a kind of a lucrative opportunity for me. So that's when I really kind of sat down and said, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. And towards the end, probably of 2020, I would say.
Okay, cool. And how's that journey been for you? Has it been pretty smooth, pretty rocky? Like,
definitely not smooth. I mean, no entrepreneurship journey is, I would say. So, but even though it hasn't been smooth, it's definitely been a great experience, and all of the learning opportunities I've had along the way have been wonderful. I've, picked up a few more talents and skills since I started. I focus heavily on engraving now, and I'm starting out with bottle painting. So, it's been a fun kind of journey for me to be able to kind of spread my creative wings, so to speak. So.
Yeah. And how has it been like balancing your full-time job as a lawyer with the part-time side hustle as a calligrapher?
Yeah. So for me, it's really just all about managing your time and setting boundaries and staying on top of, your schedule and knowing what you can say yes to and what you can, comfortably say no to,
Mhm.
knowing what your busy times are for the year. Like, every calligrapher knows that the holiday season is a busy time for us. So really just being able to have that foresight and plan ahead, and get you know, get comfortable with being able to say no to something if it's just not, what you're comfortable with and you don't have time for it. So,
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. Um, how much of like your day-to-day is focused on calligraphy versus law?
um, I would say like during the week, obviously my majority is focused on my day job, my law firm job. But on the weekends and in the evenings too, I really try to, whether it's studying for an event, preparing for that, or actually being at the event, or, practicing and working on my
Mhm.
skill set. So probably, comfortably maybe like 75-25 day job
Okay.
calligraphy. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. So, I do like, we do have a lot of people who come on here who end up being either full-time artists or they have a goal to go full-time. I think it's healthy to have a balance, especially for people who might not have the goal of going full-time and really just continuing to have this part-time, maybe side hustle to generate some of that extra income. So, um, tell me what did your business look like in, let's say, like the beginning of 2021 before you joined the Craft Academy?
Yeah, I would say I really didn't have a focus. I didn't have a niche. I didn't have a niche. Um, I didn't have that, really that one kind of thing that I offered that was unique and special to me.
Mhm,
I was kind of doing a little bit of everything. I had an Etsy shop. I had, I had my wedding clients. I had kind of everything I could grab my put my hands on. I was trying to do. And
yeah,
once I joined the Craft Academy and really took advantage of, your coaching and the modules and everything, I was able to kind of scale down and find that niche. And it really helped me, realize that you don't have to do everything. You can have, a focus and really excel in one or two things as opposed to 10 things, and
mhm.
it's just as successful. So,
Yeah. I mean, like, I still remember being in pharmacy and doing the calligraphy stuff, before I had niched down to doing the engravings only. I just remember, like, going to different places to get different supplies and having to buy, different colored acrylics because I had one specific order, and it came down to, like, maybe $20 or something of profitability, and I was like, "This is probably not worth my time." And, having that, balancing 20 different niches along with my full-time job was, like, driving me crazy. So I was like, "Okay, something has to change." So I'm glad that we were able to get you from, 10 different things to really focusing on, like, the engraving and calligraphy itself for live events.
yeah.
So what was your, like, average monthly income back before you joined?
Oh, I mean, it was at that point, it was such a unorganized and unstructured thing. I would say I probably was pulling in, maybe $500-600 a month,
Mm,
if if that. Um, so still a very like very much a side hustle. Like you could
mhm.
not you could not live on that. So
Yeah, for sure. So tell us, what were you selling back then? And like, what did your profit margins look like?
yeah, I was selling. I did a lot of stickers on Etsy, and
Mm,
like products like that, like physical products. And I remember I had this one sticker that like blew up on Etsy. for like teachers. It was like a Mrs. and then a last name sticker.
Mm,
And I thought they
yeah.
were really cute. But then I realized like I have to customize every single one of these that I do, right? Because you're
Yeah.
writing individual
Mhm.
names. And it
Mhm.
just got to I was like, doing 10 or 15 of these a night is just not sustainable. So that's when I kind of was like, maybe the physical products and the fully like customized products like that just were not the way to go.
Yeah. And I do want to kind of point out, like, even though both of us have really gone into the service-based industry, it is still possible for you to make a profit and make a livable wage with products. You really just have to hone in on making things more sustainable by maybe doing wholesale or making things more, less personalized and less individualized. Because I used to also write cards every time I got an
Mhm.
order, and I was like, this is not sustainable. So it really is kind of the batching is the way to go, and really getting those wholesale orders and creating a brand that is super cohesive. So it is possible. It's just not what we enjoy doing. So let's just kind of clarify that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So why did you decide to invest in yourself, even though your business was like about a year old at that time?
I think I just didn't know. I was looking to pivot, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know,
Mm,
who the right people were to reach out to, how to market myself, how to kind of go about making that shift. And I saw a couple of other people that had joined the Craft Academy just before me
mhm,
do that successfully. And so I just felt like it was a great opportunity for me. My business wasn't really that old. I could kind of start fresh while being, relatively new, um, and you know have that experience and do that successfully. So
yeah. Do you feel like, the stuff that we provide in the Craft Academy helped you make decisions a lot easier and just be more efficient with it? Like, what was,
absolutely,
like, the thing that was the most helpful for you?
yeah. I mean, I think that the resources that you've put together, Rosie, the modules are so helpful, and the fact that I can like go back and reference them. If I forget something, or if I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about this now that I wasn't before.
Mhm,
That's like, yeah, a game changer, honestly, and the
mhm.
support, generally support from the group. But as far
Yeah.
as like the program itself, that's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love sharing information, and, once people join the Craft Academy, like, I'm an open book. Like, I share all the wins, all the lessons learned, and, make sure that the students that I do have are equipped with everything that they need to succeed in whatever business they're in. So let's fast forward to today. What are some of the wins that you've experienced since joining the Craft Academy?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones that I've experienced even just in the last like 4 or 5 months was getting to travel several times. You talked about that at the beginning, but I went to
Mhm.
LA for Gucci. I went to Philadelphia for Bloomingdale's last month, and went to Cleveland. Like the opportunity to travel while getting to like be creative and also make money for it, like is great. So that's probably my biggest um, win, I would say.
Cool. Um, Perfect. And then I think the last question that I have for you for this particular part of the interview is, where do you see yourself going with your business, and how has TCA really helped you achieve those goals?
Yeah, I see myself partnering with more luxury brands, doing more active kind of engagements with them, and having those repeat clients just continue to build into my relationships.
Mhm.
Doing different types of events too. I mean, influencer events are starting to become big again, and corporate events and conferences and things like that. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
be able to do more of those. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited to like I've heard that you've worked for the Cleveland Orchestra and then you were even able to drive or not drive, fly to Orange County to work
Yeah.
for Gucci, which is like a huge, huge brand. Like everybody knows Gucci, right? I say it all the time. So it's just so cool to see your transformation in the program. And, not only that, but she's also been a pivotal part of our academy because she's like our resident lawyer. She's also looked at the contract templates that I provide in TCA. So, she's looked at it. We've had hundreds, like almost 80 people use the contracts. So we know it works and, it's been tried and true so far. So we're actually going to move on to kind of the main topic. And I'm sure this is the reason why most people are tuning in today. It's actually the topic of calligraphy contracts and all the law things. So before we dive into that, I do want to give a disclaimer. We're going to be talking a lot about contracts and trademarks and things. And even though KRISTIN is a licensed attorney in Ohio, she is not your attorney. So make sure that just to be safe, make sure that you contact a local lawyer in your area to get that legal advice. I'm also going to be talking about my experience, and obviously, I'm not a lawyer. So take this kind of with a grain of salt and make sure that anything that that might be a legal implication or problem, make sure that you contact your local lawyer and ask them first. Okay.
Great.
All right. So I'm excited to pick your brain about all things pertaining to calligraphy law. So the first thing we're actually going to talk about is contracts. So as a calligrapher or a creative that's doing something for potentially like a wedding or a live event for a luxury brand or even just selling physical products, what are the things that should be included in calligraphy contracts?
Yeah. So I think you really just want to have as many specifics as you possibly can for what's involved in what you're doing, where you'll be, what kind of materials you'll be using, what you'll provide, what the client will provide. And how long are you going, if it's a live event, how long are you going to be there? Do you include setup time? Do you include breaks? Do you include if something happens and you happen to show up late, or you show up and this has happened to several of our TCA peeps, they don't even realize that you're supposed to be there or they get the day wrong or anything like that. So, ultimately it's just a matter of thinking through, I think, put yourself in the day of the event, or, the situation of being at the wedding, and seeing what walk around the venue, see what you need to provide. And, down to what color markers are you going to use? What tool are you going to use to engrave? You don't have to be specific about the yoke fellow or the mestiza or anything like that, but
Yeah.
having as much clarity as possible so that everybody has clear expectations, right? And if something were to happen down the line, you have that record to go back to that is a legal document that you can refer and say, nope, this is what we said. This is the venue agreed to provide me a table and a chair. There's no table here. Let's figure this out. Let's work together to work this out. And definitely payment terms. That's a big one too. Like, are you going to ask for all the payment up front? Are you going to do a 50% retainer and a 50% after the project is over? A lot of the big brands do like a net 60 or net 30, which means that they can pay you within 30 days after the event, which is very common for big companies like that. So if you see something like that, don't get like freaked out. But
Yeah. So let's actually dive into the net 30 and 60. Is it recommended that you try to negotiate down to maybe get like a 15-day?
You can. A lot of times, because those big companies have, an accounts payable department who they run things very specific ways, it can be difficult to negotiate that down, but you can always ask. I've never been in a situation where you ask for something and then the client says, actually, no, we don't want to even work with you anymore. Like, that's not, the worst they can do is say, no, we need to stick with our standard payment terms. And then, going forward, like, okay, I can expect to see payment within 60 days. And you can kind of budget for it then, right? Like, just,
yeah. And it's 60 calendar days, right? Not 60 business days.
yes. Yeah. Typically 60 calendar days. If it's business days, they'll usually specify.
Yeah.
Specify.
Yeah, cool. That's good info. So follow-up question. Is it recommended to get like a physical signature or a digital signature?
Either one. A lot of, if something happens and you had to, take somebody to court or anything like that, a court's not going to say, oh, this was signed in digitally. We don't accept it. As long as both are signed, it doesn't really, make a difference.
Okay. And then is it legal if you sign it without a notary present? Like, how official does this have to be?
Absolutely. You don't need a notary to make a contract enforceable. You just have to have both parties sign. And yeah, I mean, notaries are more so for like if you need to prove that the person that signed is the one that actually signed. And they're more for like really official legal documents, like the deed to a house or like, power of attorney or something like that. So, but yeah, you don't need a notary for your like wedding client. So, no.
Okay. Yeah, that's good information. Sometimes, it's good to have that knowledge behind you just in case. So, what happens if both parties sign the contract, but the client doesn't actually uphold their end? So, for example, if the client doesn't pay the remaining amount after the project is completed, or maybe the calligrapher goes on to the event on the wrong day, even though it's been signed in the contract that it's supposed to be that specific day, but nobody caught it. What would happen?
So, I mean, legally, you have the right or recourse to, you could potentially sue if you do, or take claims court to get, your what is due to you in the contract, which is typically your payment. Or, but typically, I kind of shy away from that because you don't want to necessarily burn a bridge and get this reputation for being kind of litigious, as we would say, or quick to go to court or to sue or to bring legal action or anything like that. So I always kind of recommend, working with the client, saying if it's been 30 days and you haven't been paid, just following up with them. And usually they're quick to say, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so sorry. Like, let me get that sent over to you right away. Or, if you showed up on the day that was contracted and they weren't ready for you, just reiterating, like, I prepared for this. I drove here. I, took time out of my schedule to be here, and I didn't take another opportunity in order to come and be with you on this event date. And a lot of times, they're understanding and they will provide you at least like some form of payment, or, you can negotiate to reschedule the day of the event, or, work on things at home and still get paid for them, something like that. I just, always try to be like easier to work with versus like coming across as being difficult.
Right. Yeah. And I think you said that really well, that you don't want to burn bridges, because you never know if they're going to hire you again or if they're going to present you with other opportunities for different companies. You just never know like what relationship they have, because the luxury realm is very small. Everybody knows everybody. So you want to be super careful about legal ramifications that you go down. So yeah, I think that's a really great advice for someone to just, be very fair and to explain like, yeah, I took time out of my day. I missed a potential opportunity to be here because we agreed to it in the contract. So is it possible to get at least gas money or something like that? So I think that's very fair. Would you enforce like a late fee if they maybe went past the 30 days?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely try to put that. I would negotiate that at the beginning versus trying to go back after the fact and add a late fee in. If you're thinking about kind of wanting to do that or wanting to have those protections, just have it in from the beginning. And if it stays in when you negotiate, then that's great. But sometimes companies won't agree to that because, like I said, they're big. They have big AP departments, and keeping track of all those late fees can get a little complicated. So
Yeah, I hear you. Have you ever had have you ever needed to send a bill over to like collections or anything like that?
I haven't. And like I said, it's really just it's more me like not wanting to be um, combative or like we said, kind of difficult to work with, or getting a reputation of like not wanting to compromise or be an easy person to get along with in the business side of things. So um, I have had some instances where brands, they were late paying me, or they, paid on a different schedule maybe than what was technically agreed to in the contract. But um, it's just a matter of knowing that if 9 times out of 10, if it's a big brand, they'll pay you because they
Yeah.
don't become like on the opposite side. They don't want to have the reputation of like not being good for the people that they work with. And, we are kind of influencers in a way because we're on Instagram and we, partner with brands, and we kind of market for them, right, in some ways. So, having a reputation of a brand being difficult to work with in the calligraphy community too can be negative on their side. So
That's true. Cool. So, when are some instances that you recommend for people to have a contract for?
sure. Any sort of big project, I would say, if you're doing an on-site event, if you have maybe a commission from a brand to do like a big order at home and you're working offsite, a wedding is a big one, or any kind of big event like that. Those definitely you want contracts because there's a lot of money for us, maybe not necessarily for the brand. They don't, it's kind of pocket change for them, but just peace of mind for you. You don't necessarily need one for like, a one-off engraving from a client that reaches out to you, from a DM on Instagram, or like goes to your website and places an order on your website. That's not really a situation where you need a big heavy contract, or like selling things on Etsy. You don't need necessarily a contract there because Etsy has their own terms of service and terms of use too. So
Right.
if somebody jilts you and doesn't pay, or something like that, you've got recourse because you've got support from Etsy there. So
Okay. Yeah. So those are all really good points that you brought up, and it's come up on our coaching calls every so often too. So it's nice to reiterate that and really learn that and kind of solidify it inside. So, okay. So I wonder if anyone else has questions about contracts and what they would have to go into. Okay, so actually, let's move on to the copyrights and trademarks because I know this is kind of your specialty.
Sure.
So I'm going to throw out an example, and let's just kind of walk through that. Okay, so Joyce actually asked, let's see. So the owner of the contract shop has great contracts specific for creatives. Have you used her contracts, or do you know if she uses all of this in her contracts to make things easier?
So I have not used her contracts, but I've heard great things. I haven't, just because I have the like expertise in my brain. So I'm like, I don't necessarily need to pay somebody to do it for me. But it's always a good idea, if you are really new to the contract world or to like legal concepts, right? To get insight from somebody who has been there and who does that. And she's a great resource, I think. And like Rosie said, reaching out to a local attorney in your area too. Is always a great option. So
yeah. So I think even with the contract shop, Even though I don't really know her story, but
Mhm.
I'm sure she hasn't adapted the contracts to every single location. So it's still, again, something that you would have to reference and get a lawyer locally to check out just to make sure that all of this is legal. Let's just say, for example, in California, because California has different laws than Ohio. So you want to make sure that all of those are up to date and make sure that you are fully protected in case something goes wrong.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So
Spoken
that
like
was
a
a really
true lawyer,
interesting
Rosie.
choice. What's that?
I said spoken like a true lawyer.
Ah! Hardly. Okay, so, I've been in this for a long time, so I think that's kind of why I am, aware and have a little bit of lawyer verbiage. Um, all right, so let's move on and talk about copyrights. So let's just say, for example, I get a lead coming into my inbox and asks me to write out a song from Snow White. And they want me to write it in calligraphy on a poem for home usage, like to hang up on my wall. Is that legal?
So it's interesting that you picked Snow White because that's Disney, and Disney has like a huge reputation for protecting all of their copyrights.
Hmm.
Uh, but generally, if you pick something like a song lyric from, say the last 50 years, or a movie quote, or a poem, or like you said, Rosie, a song from a movie, no. So the way copyright works is if it's not something that's in what's called the public domain, you cannot recreate it in a different format, or by, like Rosie said, writing it down and selling it um, without a license to do so. So in that case, if you were doing a Snow White, you'd have to get a license from Disney to then recreate their work into a new format to sell to the customer.
Hmm.
So long answer there, short answer, no.
So even if it's just for personal use, like to put on a frame in like my backyard or
If
whatever,
it's for
still
yourself, yeah, you can totally do that. I mean, because you're
okay.
not, nobody's going to come after you for like writing something down and hanging it in your house, not for, any profit or anything like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, when you go so far as like marketing it and selling it, that's where it gets a little sticky. So
Yeah, yeah, and Disney is a big monster you don't wanna mess with, so,
yes.
definitely, if something Disney comes across your inbox, definitely be very careful of that. If it's for personal use, like if I were to make it and hang it in my office, that would be okay, but if someone else were to ask and say like, "Oh, can you make this for my living room?" and it's like a stranger, and you're making money from it, that's definitely a big no-no, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
then obviously, like if you're doing something on Disney and like you're trying to sell it on Etsy, that's like don't even play with that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Disney will come after you, for lack of a better word. And
yeah.
although
Yeah.
Etsy will probably just make you take it down first because Etsy doesn't want to get involved.
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll send like a cease and desist
Mhm.
before they
Yes.
seek, legal action.
Yeah.
But just to be safe and protect yourself and stay off the radar, I would just not even touch that. So you mentioned the public domain. Can you dive into that a little bit more and what that even means?
Yeah. So the public domain is any sort of created work. So, songs, movies, poems, things like that, that somebody has created back in the day. And after it's out for a certain period of time, the person who created, the copyright owner, loses um, their ownership. It just goes away. So it goes into what we call the public domain. And it sounds like a big file or something, but it's like a nebulous term. And that means that then it is available to be used for whatever you would choose to use it for. So I think for like copyrighted works, it's the death of the author plus 70 years.
Mm.
So, if you have something that's, say, a Taylor Swift lyric, right? Like, you wouldn't be able to use that and use it freely, like sell a written lyric until 70 years after she dies, which is
Oh,
nobody's
wow.
going to be around for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's what the public domain is. And a lot of things are, already in the public domain. So I would say, going back to that example, Rosie, where somebody reaches out and they're like, I want you to write this, song. Try to, offer up something that is similar that's in the public domain. You can search things.
Mm.
There's a website, if you just search like public domain, like it'll come up and you can search through it and try to find maybe some examples of things that you can have in your back pocket for when people reach out to you and ask, to make something that isn't in the public domain already, or you can't get
Yeah.
license for.
That's really good advice. So, like, would I just Google public domain and then there's
Yeah.
like a website or something that you can
Mhm.
go into?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so one of the questions that I got on my most viral video on TikTok is it legal to buy someone else's product, make a small adjustment for it, and then sell it for more than what you bought it for?
Yeah.
So, for example, the fragrance bottles that we do very often as commissions, we don't buy the perfume. The customer will buy it. We actually charge for the service of engraving it. So that's kind of like the small adjustment and then selling it from what you bought it for. So can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so that is covered under something called the first sale doctrine. And basically, what that means is once it's been like the person who wants you to engrave the fragrance, right? They go to the store, they pick out the fragrance that they want, and they purchase it. Once it's been purchased, the original owner of the trademark no longer has the right to say what you can and can't do as far as like reselling or redistributing that item. So you can go to a store, purchase a perfume bottle, and then go to Rosie and say, I want you to engrave on this. And you're covered under that doctrine. And that's totally 100% like legal, no issues there. So,
Wow. So I think another example that's really good, and this can actually open up to other creatives too. I see on TikTok a lot the Starbucks bottles where people put like rhinestones and different kinds of customizations over it. Technically, since they bought it from Starbucks, that would be covered under the first sale doctrine, and you can actually upcharge for the service of embellishing it, right?
yep, you should be able to, as long as you're not like taking a blank cup, right, and putting the Starbucks logo on it
Mm,
yourself.
mm-hmm,
Then,
mm-hmm.
yeah, once you've purchased the cup, and you can do whatever you want with it. Yeah.
Cool. That is super educational. I've always wondered about that. So this is like the perfect answer.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then if anyone who is attending live has any questions, feel free to drop that into the chat so that we can also answer for you as well. Okay, so the next question that I had might be more pertaining towards influencers, because there are a couple people who are partners for different brands. People who might be saying like, I got gifted like what's it called, a replica surface, for example. So how does that work, and like how much how much do you have to disclose on your caption?
Um, I don't know like this really like nitty gritty specifics of all that, but I know that the law says you do have to like notify if it's an ad, right? If you're getting paid to say the things that you're saying, and like the company has a lot of control over kind of what you're saying about it.
Mhm.
That's when you would have to really disclose, like, yes, this is an ad. You see that like hashtag ad, right? Or paid partner, right? I think they use a lot now.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're just kind of gifted something and, they want your kind of honest review, or they want you to like feature it on an Instagram post or a reel or something, I think the requirements for that are a little bit more lenient. You don't necessarily have to like disclose exactly what you're doing and how much control they have over it. But it's always kind of a nice thing to do, though. Like, you don't want to be giving away that or giving out like a false pretense on that and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's very true. So staying honest, being honest about all the posts, and even if it's like an ad, a sponsor, or even a gift, just make sure that you disclose that just so that you can be transparent with your followers. On top of that, I would definitely look at the contract that they send you and make sure that you're not violating anything that is in the contract itself. Otherwise, you could get kicked out of like the program, or you might have to pay for the product or send it back. So again, just protecting yourself and making sure that you have all your bases covered.
And also checking the
Mhm.
Instagram like terms of service, right? Because they're going to have their own
Yes.
specifications too.
Yeah, very true. So let me ask you, because I've had companies kind of reach out in, sliding into my DMs. It is it legal if you like have this conversation in the DMs and you come to like the terms in the direct message inbox? Is that legally binding? And does the company like still own the video or the rights to that?
I don't think, I mean, I wouldn't, if I was on the outside looking in and somebody came to me and said that they had that issue, I would feel like you'd have a good argument to say, no, it's not, a legally binding contract,
Hmm.
right? Nobody, you didn't sign any documents. You didn't, necessarily like agree to the specific terms and outline things like that. So I would say, I wouldn't say it's totally like always not legal, but I would
Hmm.
just, caution against doing that for one. I mean, if somebody's reaching out to you in your DMs and wanting you to do something, like transition them over to your email and then do a
Yeah.
contract that way, or do, send them some terms or your standard kind of language and things like that, that way, so that you do cover yourself. But yeah, just having kind of somebody reach out to you and say, I want you to do this and I'll give you like a 15% discount if you say these things. Like, I don't,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense.
rushy answer, but
Yeah. So I remember getting featured on the Sharpie Instagram, and that was because like I posted a video, and Sharpie, the actual account, came in and said, um, "Can we reshare this video? Put like a hashtag yes if that's okay." So how does that work?
that's a little bit more kind of binding, I would say. I mean, if they're asking you explicitly, like, are you okay with us doing this? And you have yes written or yes typed, and you're explicitly responding to them, um,
Hmm.
I would say there's a little bit more legs with that for the company. Um, but yeah, I would just, make sure that you know what you're signing up for and what you're kind of giving away. I mean, in that sense, you kind of gave them, right, the right to use your image and your, creation, essentially, right, in their social media.
Hmm.
And if it seems like it's going to be something where they're like making a lot of money off of it, or they're, using it for other things, or things like that, definitely like get more specific with your contract or your terms you're agreeing to, because you don't want to give up something that you don't want the company to be making a lot of money off of you at your expense, and not compensating you for that, right?
Yeah, totally fair. So when you post something on social media, whether let's just say it's just for your personal account, not getting reposted on Sharpie yet, do you still own the rights to that image? And like, do you lose the rights to like Instagram if they wanted to do something with that?
Yeah. So when you sign up for Instagram, you are basically agreeing by using Instagram that everything that you put on there is essentially property of Instagram or of
Mm,
Facebook, or whatever. So they have the right to take it down if they want, or to,
mhm,
block your account or suspend your account. I know that some of our TCA people have run into that before, and it's a scary time. So
right.
I would just say, recommend, like, if you're putting something on Instagram, and you really do like want to protect it, or you want it to be something that you don't lose, post it somewhere else too, like on your website, or and not like as a link to your Instagram page. Like you can do that on websites where you
Mm-hmm.
have your feed in your website, but just make sure that you have that protected in some other way, so that if you lose the post, you don't like lose it forever, right?
Yeah, I love that. I also love that you talked about the website, and the website is definitely a whole nother beast that we don't have time to cover today.
Yes.
So we can, maybe I'll do like another video or something that specifically talks about websites or something. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know as well. So Joyce had one more question. It's, can I copyright catchphrases that I want to use in my business for products that I want to sell?
Yeah. So if it's a phrase that you've come up with, um, once you kind of put it into what they call a fixed form or a fixed media, um, it's you own the copyright. That is your thing. You've got it, and you don't necessarily have to like go out and register it. You can. And sometimes registering gives you a little bit more protection. Like if somebody were to kind of come after you and try to claim that it was theirs, or something like that. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of where the registration piece comes in. But absolutely, like totally, you can copyright something, and that's how you see like the little R with the circle, or like the TM with the circle, or C,
Yeah.
um, with uh, with things that
Mhm.
people and companies put out there. Yeah.
Perfect. So that was actually a really good question. Um, if anyone else has any last minute questions, I would invite you to type them in if you want to, and we can answer them here. For now, we're actually going to turn the tables back onto Calligraphy by KRISTIN, the business. What are some of your long-term goals or future plans for the company?
Um, More traveling, I would say. I just had so much fun traveling the last few times that I've done it. And just more growth, and like just keeping that stable income and that side hustle going. I am one that's probably a little bit unique. I don't necessarily intend to give up my day job, at least not right now, not for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
So just keeping it to where it's still like enjoyable for me, but I'm still able to like justify, making money, and taking a day off from my day job every once in a while to like go fly to Orange County, or to like drive to Philadelphia or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you mentioned extra money, and obviously this is still the side hustle for you. What advantages do you have, or how does your life improve with having that extra income for yourself?
I mean, it's extra disposable income, which is nice, but it also helps me like, save and just feel like a little bit more secure in like my future. I don't necessarily have to like, I would say the majority of the money that I earn from my calligraphy business goes like straight back into savings, or back into investing in my
Mm.
business. So I don't necessarily have to worry about my living expenses, like those come out of my day job. So that's a little bit of like a comfort for me, I would say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, I mean, a little bit of extra money helps immensely. Maybe you can buy a vacation without having to think about it, or take a day off from your day job without having to be super stressed about it. So all of that sounds really wonderful. So what are some resources or maybe contracts that you are creating for the calligrapher? I know this is a 2023 plan, but what are you working on?
Yeah, I really, I mean, I know there are a lot of people out there that have contracts for creatives. And I think that's great. Those are all like wonderful resources. Like everybody should go check those out. But I really do want to do something that is, I think calligraphy is becoming such a big um, income source for a lot of people. And
Hmm.
being in it, and having it to as somebody who does it myself, I just think that there's there's really an untapped market for it. So, having this specific to calligraphy clauses and language in there, and to live events too, right? Like,
Yeah.
and specifically like calligraphy live events and engraving live events, and not like, a musician or like an artist that's doing like a on-site, I don't know, something like that. So
Yeah.
it's still, like you said, a very like small little nugget in my brain. So if anybody has any like thoughts of things that they would love to see, or experience that they've had where you're like, oh, this would be a great thing to put in there, or like,
Mm-hmm.
cautionary tale, I would love to hear about it. So
Yeah, and I will put KRISTIN's information in the description as well. So definitely make sure that you find her on Instagram and send her a DM and ask her, all things contract related.
yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about potentially investing in themselves or starting a business?
I would just say, if it's something that you really like, are if it's on your mind a lot and you're really like thinking about it a lot, and it's something that it's just constantly like in your brain, right? Like, just do it. I mean, I don't think there can be anything bad that comes from like putting yourself out there and like believing in yourself, and investing in yourself, because if it doesn't work out, you learn something from it. But if it
Mhm.
does, like, you've proven that you can do this thing, and like, it's such a cool thing to say. Like, I mean, Rosie, you're like such an inspiration, and
Oh.
a lot of people in the Craft Academy too, right? Like, I mean, to be
Yeah.
able to say like, yeah, I did this, like, and it's grown into this thing. And so I don't know, I guess my advice would be like, just do it. That's a Nike though. TM Nike. I don't want to take anybody's stuff, but yeah.
Cool. So, um, I know you've been in the business for about 2 years now. What would you tell yourself 2 years ago when you first started your business?
I would tell myself, like, stick with it, and really like believe in yourself, and keep going. Because I would have never known that I would have been able to have the opportunities that I've had, even just in the last 6 months. I mean, we've said it a bajillion times on this video, but like, traveling for Gucci is like, who gets to do that? That's crazy. Um, and to
Literally
like
so cool.
just think like, what am I going to get to do in the next 6 months? You just don't know. So,
Yeah.
really like sticking with it, and being persistent, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, so that is amazing feedback and really, really good tips for anyone who's thinking about starting a calligraphy business and is thinking about potentially investing in themselves. Neela has a question, and it's what do you do if there's no on-site events in your area? Is there a way to call the attention of brands to improve that? So this is a really great question that we tackle a lot in the Craft Academy coaching calls. We have people in very, very, very small, isolated towns in America and even overseas that may not have the trend of live events coming yet. We've always been experimenting with different things and really being what I call the pioneer in that area, and really proving that there is a need and there is a value to having these live events and brand activations. So if it's a place that doesn't have a lot of on-sites yet, you're a pioneer and you essentially have to create that need and start pitching yourself and proving that you have a market and you're going to create a market for them because you're providing a value for the company and a value for their clients. So if you have questions about that, and you need to find out a little bit more about the Craft Academy and learn exactly how you can actually pitch yourself to these brands, even though live events is not a thing yet, definitely send me a message on Instagram. All you have to do is, send me that DM or sign up for a coaching call with me, and we can figure out together what your game plan is going to be. Like we said, like, you can earn a little bit of extra income, or even, just as your side hustle, or you can grow your side hustle and turn it into a full-time hustle. So no matter what your business goals are, it is very important for us to connect with you and really help you build the business of your dreams. So if that is something that you want to move forward with, definitely send me that message. And then KRISTIN, tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at lettered by KRISTIN. KRISTIN with an I, not an E.
Perfect. So I will also link that as well so that you can connect with her. She's an awesome resource. She's, a badass lawyer, and she's really been an important part of our community, and we're just so happy to have her. So thank you so much, KRISTIN, for coming on.
Yay, this was fun.
Yay, have a good day. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.